Ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon and warm greetings to all distinguished panelists and dear participants joining us today in person and online. On behalf of the International Solar Alliance, I'm delighted to welcome you all to this session on catalyzing the clean energy transition through emerging technologies. I'm Ridula Bharadwaj, Program Lead for ISA's Green Hydrogen Storage and Solar E-Mobility Programs under ISA, Asian Development Bank, TA. And in today's session, we will discuss key opportunities and challenges in scaling up new technologies related to solar, green hydrogen, storage, solar e-mobility, and battery and solar waste management. We will cover the unique regional and sectoral contexts and insights from international experts through our distinguished panel. To set the tone, we will now hear the welcome address from Mr. Felipe Saliba, Chief of Unit, Knowledge Management and Capacity Building, ISA. As you know, capacity building is the core of ISA's mission, and Felipe leads its three flagship pillars, the Global Capability Center, GCC, the StarC initiative, and the ISA Academy digital platform for large-scale learning experience access. With over 25 years of global experience in knowledge management and digital transformation, Felipe works with governments and development partners to build enduring institutional capacity and accelerate the adoption of solar solutions. Over to you, Felipe.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you. Today, the world is at a decisive moment. Countries, especially developing nations, must accelerate the shift to clean energy, not only to meet climate goals, but also to strengthen energy security, jobs creation, and build new industries. Emerging technologies are no longer optional. They are a strategic lever for competitiveness and resilience. At ISA, we see this every day in our work with member countries. Our four pillars, country engagement, catalytic finance, and global capability and digital platform, and technology roadmaps, are designed to help countries to take informed, sovereign decisions that expand access, reduce costs, and attract investments. India's own experience shows how innovation scale and strong policies can transform an energy system in less than a decade. This is a powerful signal for other major economies. When the right technologies and policies are aligned, progress can be fast and transformational. Across our network, we see remarkable momentum from agri-PV in Africa to floating PV in Asia and early green hydrogen pilots in LAC. New materials like perovskite tandems, advanced storage systems, and solar-powered mobility are redefining what is possible. I want to sincerely thank our distinguished speakers and our moderator, Dr. Matur. It's an honor to have you here, sir. To ensure that emerging technologies become real opportunities on the ground, not just concepts discussed in global forums. So from ambition to action. And I look forward to a rich discussion and hope this session strengthens our collective ambition for a clean, reliable, and inclusive energy future for all. Thank you, and I hand over to you, Mirdula.
Thank you, Felipe. Ladies and gentlemen, before we dive into the panel discussions, I will take a few minutes to present the ISA activities and approach in the new technology area to give you an overall context and background. So can I ask my colleague Raj to please put the slide? Okay, so we'll go to the next slide. As you all know, ISA is a treaty-based intergovernmental organization And India and France are president and co-president. We have 4 regions: Asia and Pacific, Africa, Latin America and Caribbean, and Europe and other regions, each represented by 2 vice presidents. So you can see Australia and Sri Lanka for APAC, Ghana and Seychelles for Africa, Grenada and Suriname for LAC, and Germany and Italy for Europe and others. So as I speak, we have 125 members. That includes the full members and signatories. Going to the next one. So ISA has 9 programs. On the left, you see our 4 pillars: Catalytic Finance Hub, Global Capability Center and Digitization, regional and country level engagement. And today we are talking to this, about the technology roadmap and policy activities. So we provide informed guidance to our members on technology forecasting, existing and emerging technologies, policy analysis, and innovation. So we have 10 programs in ISA, and so this is the slide. I will just give you because of the lack of time and time constraint, I'm just giving you a flavor of what we have done in different areas under the new technologies group. So we support our member countries by doing technology prioritization. So if you look at the existing technology and you click on the use case, next slide, please. Yeah, if you click on the use case, this is the example of, what we have done. And also did a report on this, which was launched last COP. So here you can see the stacking of different storage technologies with respect to the use cases. And then you can see on the lower side of the graph, different use cases. And then you see on the graph, how the different technologies are stacked up. So we have graded the technologies based on their performance on technical and commercial parameters. This report has all the details, and all our reports are available on our website, and links are given in the concept note as well at the background. Then if you go back, emerging technologies is another area of interest where we keep our member countries informed. If you go to click the technology forecasting, you see here the different TRL levels and how the battery technologies or storage technology per se are, they are at different TRL levels. And it's important to tell our members about the emerging technologies so that they they prepare well in advance for those. So going back to this the parent slide. So country prioritization, what we do is that based on the country requirement, use cases over there, we do the technology and country prioritization hand in hand so that it makes sense to the member countries that what we are talking about. So this is an example. If you click on the identification, this is an example of 10 countries we shortlisted for short and medium duration storage based on certain screening parameters and rationale. And we have published this report released it in the Clean Energy Ministerial 2 months back. And if you click on the front runners again, go back. Yes, and this is the long duration energy storage. And I'm very happy that Julia is here with us. She was the reviewer for our report. And thank you so much, Julia, for your time in reviewing our report. This report, again, was launched at the Clean Energy Ministerial 2 months back. So going back to the parent slide, solar EV ecosystem readiness assessment framework is something we have developed for, we have analyzed 64 LDC and SIDS member countries of ISA using this framework, where we have analyzed solar ferry, 2-wheeler, 3-wheeler, 4-wheeler, and small car segments for LDC and SIDS. And we have ranked them in different buckets based on the framework that we have developed, taking 13 critical screening parameters. And they are for policy and regulatory analysis, business cases, and also technology landscape-based scenarios. So going back, if you come to the ecosystem readiness assessment, This is the first exercise we did in green hydrogen, and we launched this report and framework in COP Sharm el Sheikh in 2022. This is again, we analyzed around 40 or 45 member countries, put them in 4 buckets based on their evaluation done on screening parameters that you see on the screen. And this actually framework is very instrumental for us, because if you see on the right side of the slide, these are the deep dives we have done for at least 17 countries across our member regions. Using this framework, we have analyzed the pros and cons, opportunities and challenges, and how the countries fare on different aspects across the green hydrogen value chain. Now, going back to the parent slide, please. If you go back to the thing, yes. So that's about what we have done in terms of country prioritization. Analytics and advocacy is another thing that we take very seriously. We have, as I speak, we have trained around 35 countries across regions. If you click on the Cairo, this is the 14 to 15 countries across Africa and Latin America. We trained under GHIC. I'll tell you about that, the platform. So these are the policymakers from 14 or 15 member countries. We had 1 week long intense in-person residential training for green hydrogen. And then if you click on the New Delhi, this is the group we trained last year in October in Delhi, Asia Pacific, and LAC, few countries, and also few Indian states. If you click on the toolkit development, going back to the parent slide, yes. These are the 4 tools we developed for green hydrogen, and we launched it. It is freely available. It's very user-friendly. Very soon, we are going to train our countries in using this tool. They are related to green hydrogen production cost assessment, green hydrogen carbon accounting, green hydrogen project ecosystem readiness assessment, how the country is ready, and also green hydrogen risk assessment, yes. Now, if you just go to the Sunrise platform, this is one of the last slide here. We launched this platform. This is the basically a circular economy based platform, which enables ISA member countries build a circular solar and battery future, where every solar panel and battery is designed, deployed, and recovered responsibly. And this was launched just few weeks back in our assembly, and we have a full-fledged session on this in the next week at COP. So so if you click on GHIC, this is our mother platform, you can say, for green hydrogen. Just to give you an example of capacity building, this is Center of Excellence we created with partnership with ADB and G20. Of course, MNRE was a core partner in this, the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. And this is a one-stop platform for all the information about green hydrogen. As I speak, we have mapped around 75 countries in pre-deep dive insights, and you can just have a look at that. The website is given on the bottom left corner. And so that's where we are right now. Now, just 1 minute. At this point, I would like to introduce my colleague, Pragya Gupta. She is with us online from India to make a very special announcement. Pragya is the lead of SolarX Startup Challenge and has helped in creating an ecosystem of startup for ISA. She is resource mobilization and financial specialist. Over to you, Pragya. Can you see us?
Yes, I can see you, Mridula ji, and thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, esteemed panelists, Mathur sir, Mridula ji, ISA team, and fellow entrepreneurs and people who've joined us from across the globe today. But before we curtain raise and announce the Startup Challenge for Hydrogen and Storage, let me also take a little step back and apprise of ISA's journey to promote innovation across the globe. We're very fortunate that today we have Dr. Mathur with us, as this journey actually started off under his leadership at COP27 in Sharm el Sheikh, wherein we announced the SolarX Startup Challenge to promote solar innovations in Africa. And after conducting successful editions in Africa, APAC, including India, and LATAM, whose winners are going to be announced later this week, we thought of venturing into this new and innovative, I would say, domain of promoting green hydrogen. As we all know that the world is transitioning towards a low carbon economy, green hydrogen is emerging as a promising alternative to fossil fuels. But despite the promising nature, the green hydrogen also faces significant challenges, including high production costs, limited infrastructure, scalability. And that's where we thought that ISA could provide a platform for nurturing these innovators from across the globe. The Green Hydrogen Startup Challenge invites all startups to develop solutions that address these challenges and unlock the full potential to actually make this a green hydrogen hub. May I now request Mathur sir, Mridula ji, Felipe, my ISA colleagues, and other esteemed panelists to join us in giving a round of applause as we proudly announce the Green Hydrogen and Storage Startup Challenge 2026, and let's unveil it by actually having a little curtain raise. So maybe, Raj, if I can invite you to do a little curtain raise for the Green Hydrogen and Storage Startup Challenge 2026. I'm hoping we all can see the screen. And this is what the 2026 Green Hydrogen Startup Challenge is actually going to look like. We've got storage also inclusive in this challenge next year. It is a global challenge. It will be open to all participants across the world. Like the success of SolarX, we are also hoping to get very innovative and very new promising startups in this domain, and we would give them an access to financial funding as a one-time grant. We would also create a pool wherein they would be talking to world-class mentors, and finally having a little hub wherein an acceleration program would also be announced for the green hydrogen and storage startups from the globe. Next slide. These are the little timelines that we have in mind as we announce the challenge today. We are also going to be opening the call for applications in Q1 2026 next year. We would be shortlisting and technically evaluating the startups that we receive in the form of entries through a global evaluation technical committee. We'll have a steering group which will shortlist the entries accordingly. And finally, we will be announcing the winners at COP31 later next year. So this is the announcement of the Green Hydrogen and Storage Challenge 2026. And Mridula ji, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Pragya. So can I request the panel to please help us in launching our green hydrogen World Outlook Executive Summary. This is part of our annual deliverable in the GHIC.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'll just take a couple of minutes to take you through the primary concept behind the work that we'll be doing. Again, it bases on the fact that agriculture has been the core backbone of the global South economy, but also it's one of the most vulnerable sectors in the global South economy, with climate very, very vulnerable to climate change impacts. But if you look at the major problem, it's, I think, the inequitability in the productivity that we see between the global South agriculture and the global North agriculture. And what we've realized, the major issue is the extent of mechanization that exists between the global South and the global North agricultural systems. And the core factor is the extent of mechanization that gets derailed primarily because of the inequitable access of electricity that's there between the global South and the global North. And that's where our solution comes in, and how do we make solar power as the great equalizer as a great equalizer for agriculture. Yeah. So basically, this is what we are proposing. It's talking about an interconnected loop system that not only powers agriculture but also accelerates rural livelihoods. Essentially, the solution that we are trying to talk about over here is to look at various on-farm and off-farm applications of solar energy that like right from a pre-sowing stage where we're talking about electric tractors to on-farm activities in terms of agrophotovoltaics, in terms of electric pumps, to off-farm situation where we can look at the cold chains and the processing units come in. This was an idea that we had tabled last year in Baku, and this year the idea was to do a deeper dive and to focus on looking at the potential for developing a transformative pathway through this coupling. Again, the focus has been 8 ISA member countries across Global South regions. Essentially, the reason that we are looking at these 8 countries is because they present a contextual similarity in terms of the position that agriculture plays in the overall economy in those countries, but also the kind of climate vulnerability that they place in. Yeah, I mean, just talking about the kind of the similarities that exist and the kind of already the initiatives that have taken place over here. Essentially, I'm just trying to expedite my presentation over here. But what this paper primarily talks about is the way we can actually integrate this entire approach, looking at policy integration at one point, bringing up innovative business models, technology enablement. How do we strengthen the entire ecosystem, and how do we overlay an equity and overall equity in this powering up the rural, the farm livelihoods and the rural livelihoods element through solar energy. And with this, I would like to launch our report, which is going to be put up on the ISA platform very soon. This is a context brief that we have looked at. Great. Thank you. The next steps that we are essentially trying to look at from here is the few actions that we'll do. We're looking at market sizing and country level consultations, the country specific pathway, looking at collaborations and knowledge exchange. Then we would be looking at policy integration and country level engagement, and ending up with the stakeholder engagement. Essentially trying to look at these country specific pathways on how do we use solar energy to power up agriculture, which in the sense can accelerate the rural economy. With this, I'll hand it over to you, Mridula and Arabs.
Thank you, Ramanshu. We now transition into the panel discussion, please. We are delighted to have a very illustrious panel today consisting of representatives from MDP, private sector, think tanks, global clean energy platforms. It's my honor to introduce Dr. Mathur, our moderator for this session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mridula. I hope you can hear me. I know that the air conditioning ducts are right here, and so I have to compete against them. But I will be loud enough. We have Ian online, and we have got an excellent panel consisting of Ramanshu, Pawan, Julia, and Stephanie. Stephanie has to leave a little bit early. But to lead her, Ian, I was planning to ask you, but I'll start with Stephanie. Stephanie is the global director for the Drive to Zero. And my first question to you is about public-private collaboration when we are talking about accelerating the deployment of clean technologies. What are the successful models that you can talk about in terms of moving towards success?
Thank you for the question, Dr. Murtha, and it's good to be with you all. So as Dr. Murtha said, Drive to Zero co-leads with the government of Colombia the Global Memorandum of Understanding on Zero Emission Medium and Heavy Duty Vehicles, so trucks and buses. So we work together with 42 nations representing roughly 1 in every 5 medium heavy duty vehicles that are on the road. That represents around 43% of the world's GDP. And it's great to have the signatures on a lovely sheet of paper expressing a commitment But I'll tell you what matters, and that is the community of trust and the community of practice. And that community is supported by over 270 industry, subnational government, and other partners. That community of countries and the private sector all work together steadily by sharing information, building capacity, and being very honest about the challenges they face and the solutions that are working in their varied geographies and ways that they can be adapted to really problem solve and work through together. So I would say that we feel we have hit on a really successful model because we spend a lot of time fostering those direct relationships and creating space for the real stories, the real projects on the ground of the charging stations, the increased utilization, the fleets that are putting in motion the zero emission trucks and buses to accelerate those actions across economies.
Stephanie, I'm going to ask you a follow-up question. You know, you obviously would like to replicate this across the world. And as you replicated, one of the key issues that you've yourself mentioned is about capacity building, about scale, about getting people to learn about these things and adopt them. And the kinds of, you would obviously need apps about where to put the charging infrastructure. So what is it that you are looking at on replicating successful models across regions and sectors on network-based learning?
So I think one thing that we find, right, is that there are lessons to translate between global north and global south. So when we look at India, there are tremendous models of demand aggregation and procurement. When we look in the US along the East Coast, when we look throughout Europe, what we see are networks of infrastructure that have been identified. So actual routes from ports, highways to hubs, and the ability to replicate the kind of planning because it's involved. There are many different collaborators, and we are in this era where different stakeholders that have never needed to learn each other's language now must,
Yes.
right? It doesn't work anymore for those in the transport sector to be in a silo, those in the energy sector to be in a separate one. And so translating between the two, finding ways to have a common knowledge, I think enables the most expeditious opportunities for not just networking, but effective networking and then building those capacities to replicate.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Stephanie. If you're still here and if I can come back to you, I'll follow up. But meanwhile, let me turn to you, Ian. Ian, you and I have known each other for a long time. And one of the issues that I am constantly worried about is when will perovskite-based cells come to the market? Will the stability issues continue to bother us for a long time, or do you think they're on the verge of being solved? What is needed for these perovskite-based tandem cells to become serious contenders alongside silicon PV?
All right, thank you very much for this question, and thank you for having me on the panel. I apologize for not being there in person. I hope you can hear me well if I answer this online. So let me start this with saying that we have an absolute amazing community working on photovoltaic technology. Photovoltaic technology is the energy technology that has developed faster than any other technology in the history of any energy technology that we ever had, right? It has been getting cheaper, it has been getting better at a pace that is unprecedented. So, and the IPCC has, for example, recognized this as pointing out that solar energy is the best method that we have in order to address climate change. Of all the technologies that are out there, it has the highest potential in doing and allow us to address climate change at the lowest cost possible. And a continuation of this development are the perovskite silicon tandem solar cells and the perovskite solar cells that you have mentioned. Now, these are facing tremendous challenges in terms of stability, and we have to overcome them in order to build this up as a second technology or as an additional technology in addition to silicon, cadmium telluride, and CIGS that is out there. The major challenge is that we have to make these cells more stable and more reliable. I have to say that we have done this in the past already. So other cell technology has also faced challenges with stabilities, and we have every time been able to do this with all the technologies that are commercialized yet. So perovskite solar cells are already commercially available. Oxford PV, for example, is already selling perovskite silicon tandem solar cells, and there are a few companies in China that are selling the single junction solar cells and tandem solar cells already. These are not as good or as stable as the current silicon technology, but with kind of the tremendous creativity that we have in the community, if there's a physical solution to this problem, that we will find it, and we will find it in the next few years.
Thank you.
What we need to
very
do,
much. Yeah. No, so Ian,
what we need to do is to continue our work on it, continue research on it.
Yes,
That's the important message I
yes,
want to put out.
undoubtedly. And I'm absolutely, I mean, I remain optimistic that we will find solutions. But let me ask you, this session is about integrated technologies. So whether it's building PV or whether it is agri PV or floating solar, what would it take in policy, in regulation, in business models to make these kinds of integrations not only technically viable, but also socially and economically attractive for widespread adoption?
That's a very good question. So far, the attraction of solar energy has become of the price. Solar energy is the cheapest way to generate electricity. And we have so far done this mostly with large solar panels that are installed on fields and or integrated into buildings. Some of those things exist. One of the advantages that we have with these new upcoming technologies with perovskite is that we can relatively easily coat any type of surface that we want with them. So we have we are able to more easily integrate solar cells into other functions as well. I have seen only in the last couple of days an announcement, for example, from Mercedes-Benz that they have developed a coating with which they can coat an entire car and integrate solar into the surface of that car without you would even notice that solar is there. So my answer to this, but be careful, I am a researcher, so this is probably my go-to answer, is that the technical development that we have, right? The ability to adapt to new functionalities and to new needs is probably the strongest currency we have there, in order to make this more easily usable for people who want to apply that. And in terms of the policies that you've asked about this, I think this is very important that we have the right policies that allow the technology to develop into new markets and that basically don't disturb it from getting there. I would say that that's the most important thing that we can do.
Okay. So, Ian, I completely agree with you. I am now, after leaving ISA, I'm with the School of Public Policy in IIT Delhi. And one of the issues that we constantly come along is the issue of regulation and therefore of specification of standards. And I look forward to continue to speak to you about them.
Absolutely, I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you very much. Julia, one of the challenges that we have is that solar energy, when the sun is available, is the cheapest form of electricity in most geographies in the world. But especially for developing countries, it becomes very important that it is the cheapest form of electricity at all times. That means even at 3 o'clock in the morning, when the sun is not available. And long duration energy storage becomes a key issue. So can we hear from you, particularly as far as developing countries and the small island states are concerned, what are you seeing as far as the development of the long duration energy storage and grid availability or grid flexibility is concerned?
Great question. And thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today with ISA. Congratulations on your executive summary for green hydrogen, but also on your challenge initiative for hydrogen and storage. This is a great signal, we're really looking forward to the awards being announced next year at COP. Again, it's the partnerships that Stephanie was talking about to really kind of connect these silos, because that's how we fill in those gaps at 3 a.m. Long duration storage, as we define it, is 8 hours plus, but it incorporates all the different types of long duration storage. So every element on the periodic table, zinc and vanadium, lithium ion, we're looking at thermal energy storage, so the rocks, the salts, the bricks, the cement, and we're looking at the mechanical, so liquid air, pumped storage, compressed air, and then we're looking at chemical, so hydrogen. So it's really great that we have this diversity to pull from, because around the world, different things are going to work in different areas. We have long duration energy storage deployed today on various islands, either replacing backup diesel generators because it's cost effective, and we can help hospitals and community centers run 24/7, because long duration storage takes that excess solar and holds on to it for days, weeks, months, and even years with almost minimal loss. And so this is a huge savings right there to then bring cost parity to communities around the world. In addition to islands using batteries for backup diesel generators, we have thermal energy storage replacing refineries, or they're at ports and they're working with charging infrastructure. We also have markets that are trying to support the criteria and revenue payments for long duration storage. We're working on this in India with fellow partners in Terry, but we're also looking at, what can we do in emerging areas? In South Africa, industrial zone, great area to bring long duration storage and solar together to give that 24/7 clean heat and clean steam. Another example with the agricultural example earlier, long duration storage can help greenhouses. So every single part of every single community can have long duration storage. It's really getting the signals to match up where we can really make sure the markets or contracts or power purchase agreements align to give the value add. So we need those market signals. We need the right criteria and financial agreements. And then we need to make sure that we really can build these supply chains, because we have the long duration storage. We have to get it to scale and provide that flexibility.
Julia, I am a demand person. If you create demand, supply will follow.
Great.
Okay. And
Great.
to me, as I told earlier, I am with the School of Public Policy. So I look at everything from a public policy lens these days. In India, we've been relatively successful by changing the policy so that we only ask for round the clock, different words, but essentially round the clock renewable energy supply. 2024 was relatively successful in as much as we got round the clock supply, solar plus wind plus storage, which costed less than coal capacity built at the same time. What are the kinds of policy frameworks you think from the LTES Council point of view? And may I also suggest international collaborations that may be needed to accelerate the deployment of these integrated solar and storage technologies?
We definitely know that there are 3 to 5 different pathways that work for different countries. So in India, for example, having a storage target works because it brings financial certainty in regulatory markets. In India, it's great that you have a pumped hydro and a short duration, but there is no specific long duration energy storage target. There's no resource adequacy value to really demonstrate to give that round the clock. If that was in policy today, there would be more and more companies in India wanting to grow and more international investors wanting to come to the marketplace. And we look forward to working on developing this. There also is the market criteria. If a market is set up, does it pay for a black start? Does it pay for inertia? Does it pay for all these other services? And right now the criteria isn't set up to pay for this. So that would be another avenue to help. What's also great is that India is doing both parallel pathways of R&D development with building market certainty. And that's also really important to continue the long-term planning. We don't want this to be a 5-year thing and it's done. As you point out, the need is there, AJ. So we need the market to continue to grow and expand. And building standards. Standardization really helps, but we need standards to address the diversity. Don't put it all in one silo. And so in the last point, I would just share that we need cost of capital to come down. And it's that public-private partnerships. There are many industries who want to participate, but private financing is very risk averse still to this day. And they need to de-risk the transition. So how do you tie in sets of security, with de-risking a transition? How do you tie in, whether it be like federal funds, global funds, and development banks to private banks? Having more of those linkages to improve the value stack. It's all about blended finance and the value stack capability. So we have metrics, we have financing, we just need the right policies to continue to support the advancement of LNS deployment.
So, Julia, this is something on which we will continue our discussion. I'm very interested in what are the kinds of specifications that you would put in the auctions, in the tenders, in order to meet this. But that is a conversation that we will continue. Pawan, let me talk to you about green hydrogen in particular and focus on the gray and green hydrogen. There's clearly our current problem is the premium between gray and green hydrogen. What are the kinds of R&D innovating financing instruments that could meet the, that could meet this ultimate goal and help us in bringing green hydrogen into the market?
Thank you. Looks like I'm the loudest here. You all can hear. But Professor Mathur, if you can give me a moment, I also wanted to build up on what Julian was saying about the best, because I think it's a very interesting transition I wanted.
Yes.
And then I'll come to the R&D of the hydrogen. So I think one thing for the best was, Julian, as you were saying, that what is it trying to do, right? What ancillary service? Is it capacity differential? Is it infrastructural differential? Is it the T&D? Is it the black start, or the frequency regulation and voltage support?
Correct.
And I think two things what we need is, one is a market framework that we were talking about, but also I would say is the transparent price discovery that we really to do. There are three examples which I wanted to quote. One was this capacity payments, which Italy actually launched. So it actually auctions is out, and you're able to do in kind of for the frequency regulation. So they are able to understand that it's awarded through competitive auction. So that is what it's doing in Italy. One example from Greece was also they were doing this capital expenditure support and guaranteeing targeted revenue through a contract for different schemes supported by the EU Commission. So I think what we also need to look is how are these new schemes emerging? Because for BEST to really grow, it also has to be seen as not as a standalone, but also how do you see integrated, and then you derive the value for BEST with this kind of mechanism. So I think that was anyway one of my points that I wanted to add when we are talking about the BEST itself. But when we talk about hydrogen, and I'm specifically getting to India, the surprise discovery in the last two contracts that have happened with green ammonia have lasted between 3.77 to 3.86 per kg. So that is the price that we have really discovered. So a premium is still attached to it. And where the R&D innovation happens is in these 4 or 5 areas. One is, I think, improving electrolyzer efficiency. The second is also reducing the dependence on critical minerals. I think that is one key area when we are talking about for lowering the loading in catalyst. Third is advancing the thinner membranes and stack components and developing cheaper, I think, indigenously made alternatives, because a lot of these parts we are importing right now, and unless we really focus on membranes, these efficiencies and critical minerals, and really rebuild some of these electrolyzers, I think we will face this challenge. The second point I wanted to talk about was also enabling R&D needs to also enable financial ecosystem, and that how do we really get venture capital participation into, coupled with creation of dedicated innovation and R&D funding a mechanism, which actually has to be jointly seen as a combination of what industry and academia and government are really trying to do. Because right now there's a lot of funding coming for government, but how do you really bring VC funding into this? Because these are little very long term. They're not going to be short term. So how do we really create that mechanism for cost reduction and also ensuring that technology maturation? And I think we drive innovation because we are really talking about demonstration projects, and how do we really and they're going remaining very slow when we are really talking about in the green hydrogen space. We also need to recognize that R&D comes with long gestation periods. I think that is not being recognized, and it's not something you can do in a year or two. I mean, really, we really need to look at a little bit of 5 to 10 years when we're talking about the R&D, the way the innovation schemes in R&D are also designed, because it's, and look at more from R&D for the application in the industry and not just from what is at a TRL level of 1 to 3, but the R&D also needs to focus on TRL 4 to 7, because then that can go for commercialization.
So I'm going to come back to you. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Stephanie, are you on your way out? Thanks so much. So I will come back to you because what I want to talk about, what are the kinds of things that can help this? And in my own view, if you link procurement and performance. So for example, I'm going to give a very simple example. The best solar cells that we have in the market today are 24% efficiency. So you say by 2030, I want them to be 27% efficient, else I will not procure. By 2035, I want them to be 30% efficient, or I will not procure. Linking, so ensuring that there's demand at the end and ensuring that there is a particular performance could be a way of making this kind of R&D investment viable. But I'll come back to you on that. But Ramanshu, we were very lucky that you released the report on farm mechanization earlier at the top of this session. Let me ask you that as far as farm mechanization is concerned, I didn't have a chance to read the report. But if you're talking of electric pumps, electric tractors, decentralized cold storage, things that ISA is very interested in. Now, how can they reshape productivity on the one hand, farm productivity on the one hand, energy security on the second hand, and if we have three hands, then we are talking also of income stability, not just income increase, but income stability. Ramanshu, all yours.
Right. Thanks, Dr. Mathur, for this very critical question. So I'll just take a step back and talk about the core essence of farm mechanization. It's not just about, perhaps a transfer of technology, but it's around making agriculture a lot more efficient, a lot more productive, and a lot more inclusive. For instance, if we start talking about electric tractors, again, I'm just traversing the entire cropping life cycle. So traversing the path from electric tractors, it's not just about enhancing or adding another layer of farm mechanization over there, but also bringing an additional layer of people into the farms. Our field visits across various states in India have shown that the traditional tractor design does not let women be a part of the farm the farm mechanization process, but electric tractors, it does actually make that piece there. Agri-photo
and allows the tractors to be smaller.
Exactly. So you're getting a fresh and making an invisible workforce of agriculture a lot more visible over there. So that's an immense push around the entire farm productivity space. Agri-photovoltaics, we are at a very early stage in India around agri-photovoltaics, but it has an immense potential. India is right now at the cusp of doing a transition from a very cereal-based cropping profile to more market-based cropping profile. Agri-photovoltaic can bring that transition, can nudge that transition, plus providing the entire additional power requirements that could be brought into closer to the farms. A major problem that we see with our smallholder farmers, and India is home to around 65% of smallholder farmers. The major issue is that the value chain is not located near the farms; they are further down the line. So the entire power source getting located at the farms brings the value chain closer to the farms, which not only increases the income but also makes that potential for stabilizing income, because that's one way that you can actually create this transition. We have seen quite a few success stories around solar pumps, but another aspect that comes in is around the cold storage.
Right.
We lose around a quarter of our production to food wastage. That's a quarter of income that's going away. Now we have storages, which not only adds that another 25% odd additional income to the farming household, but more than that, because then you can actually time your produce to the market. So that way we can actually see it's, energy is not just about transfer of technology to the farms, but also increasing the returns from the farms.
Himanshu, I'm deeply interested in this, particularly because I run a small farm. Now, one of the challenges that I do have is about local employment. This would obviously enhance local employment. But you are Shakti. You are the font of philanthropic capital in this region. How can philanthropic capital help in the kind of demonstration projects which can pull these kinds of technologies into the market?
So I'll keep my answer very short over here. I think the role that philanthropy can play here is to provide that patient capital.
Okay.
More often than not, and Pawan, your point also, is that most of the time when there are investments, we are looking at very short-term results. But here, when we talk about, say, farm mechanization, we are talking about a very results at a very long-term duration. It's around those larger outcome level shifts that we need to look at. And for that, patient capital is needed. For that, we need investments that are open to risks of identifying not only what's working, but also what's not working. Because at the end, if you're talking about scalable solutions, it is important for us to understand what is not working before we end up making wrong investments, before we start getting the VCs into it. So I think that's where philanthropy can come in to provide that patient capital, as well as philanthropy can work with a lot of, because again, I'm moving into the topic of farm mechanization, which also needs a lot of financing to the smallholders, or in general, financing to the farming communities that would come in. And there you need some level of first loss guarantee to the MFIs that would come in order to see that these technologies can be tested or not. I think that's where philanthropy can come in. And I feel that's the role and the responsibility of philanthropy to provide that cushion for experimenting scalable solutions.
Okay. So, Himanshu, there's a huge amount that we have to talk. But let me, we are not having Kate, which Kate Hughes is unable to come. But let me open this up for any kinds of questions. And if I can get a show of hands, it will allow me to manage the time better. So if there are any questions, if not, then I'm going to turn to you, Julia, and put you on the mat and follow up. So what is it that you think would be needed in order to bring long duration energy storage into the mix? Where are we as far as commercial, but even the developing kinds of LDES is concerned? How do you think we can bring it into the market?
Great question. I think this is working. Now it's working. Great. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Kind of better. This is better. Oh, way better. Hi, everybody. Great question. And I think it's three-part because we're here at COP. This is a COP of deployment. We need storage and we need long duration storage, but we need to do more education and awareness at the same time if parallel efforts do policy. And the 195 NDCs, 99 mentioned storage. 20 of them actually mention long duration storage, and 2 have specific LDES targets. Ironically, those are the 2 that don't have them already. We have like 6 other countries that have LDES targets. So we need to have this synergy. So those are great overarching market signals, but we need to make sure that now the financing conversation that's also happening at COP brings in the patient long-term financing to help SIDS, to help different regions of the world match the existing market. We're bankable today. We have projects deployed, but we need to scale them. And so I think it's the awareness of what is working. Why are companies like Heineken using long duration storage? Why are companies like Ørsted or Alfa Laval or even Shell and Total, they're all using long duration storage? That we need to showcase that there's this partnerships here. And the last part on the markets, we've got to get the markets giving the right signals for the policy creation. There are in India and Europe and Latin America, this next year in Brazil, there is an auction for storage. It's a great opportunity for Brazil to do short and long duration storage, because otherwise it will set itself back 5 years and it will cost customers here hundreds of thousands of pesos or dollars. So if you were to deploy 8 terawatts of long duration storage by 2040, which is what we need to meet the 11 terawatts of renewable energy, it's $540 billion a year in savings. we need to talk more about the savings you get when you bring in storage to help solar and wind and be more cost effective. So talk about the savings, keep pushing the policies, make sure these auctions don't forget all of the pieces of the puzzle, bring short and long duration together, keep having industry showcase that we are support this and want the need, keep having governments say that the policies would need to be there to support the patient long-term financing. So we all have a role to play, and the table is set. Now we need to really kind of continue to be committed to the impact we're going to make. And storage is a huge part. So thank you for working with us.
Ian, I'm coming back to you. So if I was going to put your personal money, would you put it on technology? Just as Julia did on storage, where would you put your money on solar?
Where would I put my money on solar? Right now, I mean, I have put my money on solar. I actually have invested into solar cells that are delivering electricity on my house for actually regulatory reasons, and we should talk about this. I don't have the solar panels on my rooftop. I have them in a system somewhere else. But I think one of the best investments you can do in many places is to buy solar panels and to put them on your rooftop for your personal consumption of electricity. And ideally, you combine that. You put it on a solar panel plus a battery that you can use in order to run the appliances in your house. So that would be my investment. Buy something for yourself. Put solar panels on your rooftop.
Ian, that makes great sense. Most of the people in developing countries, including India, have a lot of battery storage in our homes. We have inverters which charge the batteries when the electricity is there, and used to use the electricity from the batteries at times when the grid was not reliable.
Mm-hmm.
There is no reason why the batteries cannot be used for PV. Now, what we need to do, I believe, is to create the policies that would help create the virtual power plants, which are so common in your country, for example, in Germany. I would very much like to see that. But I know that we are ending now, and Philippe and Mridula are looking at me with piercing eyes. So, Pawan, I wanted to ask you, but I will talk to you. And Ramanshu, when we meet in Delhi, don't forget the question. So let me thank all of these excellent panelists for this great discussion. We talked of the technology. We talked of the kinds of both the solar technology and the storage technologies. We talked of the kinds of policies which would make that happen. We talked of hydrogen and the kind of hydrogen interventions the policy interventions that could help hydrogen. We looked at farm mechanization, the decentralized sector, and saw what is it, where are we today? And Ramanshu, I'm very glad that we are already there today. So I would like to thank all of you and the panelists for this excellent panel discussion, and thank you all very, very much. And thanks to you, Philippe and Mridula, for making this happen.
Thank you, sir. We are grateful for your support, as always, and guidance received while you were at DG ISA, and you continue to mentor us on a professional journey. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our session. On behalf of the ISA, I extend my sincere gratitude to all esteemed speakers, member country officials, and in-person and online participants for your time, insights, and commitment to driving forward the green energy agenda. Thank you once again. We close the session now. You have a great day.